Panther, Wakanda Forever is the newest installment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the final film of Phase 4, and is once again directed by Ryan Coogler and co-written by him and John Robert Cole, I believe, is the co-writer for this movie. Queen Ramonda, Shuri, and Baku Okoye and the Dora Milaje fight to protect their nation from the intervening world powers in the wake of King T'Challa's death. As the Wakandans strive to embrace their next chapter, the heroes must band together with the help of War Dog Nakia and Everett Ross and forge a new path for the kingdom of Wakanda. A few things first, right off the bat. Obviously, I've stated multiple times that I'm in the middle of moving. There's going to be a different look to the quality of videos because I don't have my equipment with me. I don't have my studio lighting with me. I don't have my camera with me. I'm filming this on my laptop. There's going to be other times where I'm going to be doing short reviews, as I did with the movie Tar, and the audio quality for those isn't going to be that great either. Also, my sound quality might not be as great either. I don't have the ability to do editing and post-production as much as I did before, so it might sound a bit off. Apologies. Now let's talk about Wakanda Forever. This movie had a very, very impossible task that I'll get into in a moment. I really liked the first movie. I thought that there were parts of the first movie that, at least from the visual effects standpoint, that felt unfinished to me. But other than that, I thought the first Black Panther movie was amazing. I thought it had a great world set up, great characters. Killmonger was one of my favorite villains. Had some great action set pieces when they were on there, and it didn't rely on those action set pieces. And I wasn't really expecting Wakanda Forever to rely on those action set pieces as well, and it doesn't. What Wakanda Forever is mostly a heavy movie. It's a very dialogue-heavy movie. It is deliberately paced slow in many moments. And that might be a huge turnoff for diehards of the MCU who are used to a lot of punchy, kicky things and people going flying backwards and people with superpowers using their superpowers. That is not this movie. I mean, there's moments like that in this movie. There's about 3 major action set pieces in this movie, but they're few and far between. They're not like back to back to back. This is a gargantuan movie. It's 2 hours and 41 minutes long. And when I say that it's a heavy movie, it's mostly a movie that is very dialogue heavy and very subtle in its quieter moments because it's such a reflective movie. As I said, this movie has such a tough task ahead of it with the unfortunate passing of Chadwick Boseman 2 years ago. So what ended up happening is that Ryan Coogler had a draft of the script that he was going to do for Black Panther 2. Boseman unfortunately passed away and mostly forced Ryan Coogler to rewrite the entire movie. And what you see before us is what he wrote. Lots of characters deal with themes such as pain, loss, grief, how to rebound and deal with all of that torture and emotional turmoil inside of them, especially Shuri, who I think steals the entire show in this entire movie. She's by far the most fleshed out character in that regard. But what it felt like to me was that it was never disrespecting Chadwick Boseman's legacy. I think touching on those themes by incorporating T'Challa's death into the movie, that's not a spoiler, that's literally in the trailer. It wasn't just like, oh hey, Chadwick died, so we have to have the character of T'Challa die. It wasn't just that. It wasn't just, something to check off a box and just kind of throw it in there. It really took its time to actually talk about that and what it meant to not only the characters, but to the entire crew behind this movie, the cast, production team, Marvel Studios themselves, and what it means to us audience members. And that's what made this movie feel so reflective. It felt very lived in. The fact that we were actually reflecting again on the legacy that Boseman left behind and it made me reflect on his other roles as well while watching the movie. And I guess maybe that took me out of the movie in some parts, but when a movie does that in a very respectful way, like this movie does, it enhances the viewing experience to a T. I cannot fault Ryan Coogler or anybody involved with this movie who had to deal with such an unfortunate event. It's very similar to what happened with Carrie Fisher in Star Wars, where she survived at the end of The Last Jedi, and then they had to figure out what to do with Leia in Episode 9. And say what you want about The Rise of Skywalker and the various problems it has. I even have my problems with it, even though I enjoy the movie. But that is one of the things I think most people agree was very well done in The Rise of Skywalker, was how they handled Princess Leia after the unfortunate death of Carrie Fisher and how they honored Carrie Fisher's legacy as that character. It felt very much the same here with Chadwick Boseman, and there are a couple tributes to him in the movie that I thought were done in perfect taste. It's clear that because of Boseman's unfortunate passing, that everybody just wanted to step up their game on this one. Not that anybody was bad in the first movie, but it just seemed like there was a renewed energy amongst the entire cast here, just giving it their all, trying as hard as they could, making the best movie they could. And I feel like Ryan Coogler, with the resources that he had, did the best he could. I cannot imagine how hard it must be. I do not want to even imagine being put in that position. And they pulled it off really well. There's a lot of new characters in this movie. Some characters that I'm looking forward to seeing more of, like Riri Williams, who's going to be in the Ironheart TV show. I really liked her a lot in this movie. She's not in it a whole ton, but when she's there, really liked her. She added some comedy spice to the movie. It's not a very comedic movie like most MCU movies because it is dealing with some subtle themes, as I had mentioned. It's more reflective, it's more of a drama, it's more about what's actually going to be happening to Wakanda and some things that could affect it as a nation. But she added some comic relief in some scenes, and that was a welcome sight. I also really love the character of Namor, or Namor, however you want to say it, because they say it both ways. But one of my favorite MCU villains of Phase 4. I don't think anybody's going to top Wenwu from Shang-Chi, but Namor's up there, man. He's probably my second favorite villain of this entire phase, and I've always said this with a Marvel movie, because at one point Marvel had a problem with their villains. And that was they had a really good movie surrounding the villain, but the villain was always the thing that kept the movie from being as good as it could have been, because the villain was either written really weak or the villain wasn't in it all that much. Namor is a great villain. He has the perfect amount of screen time, and his motivations are clear. And I've always said, I think what makes the best Marvel villain a great Marvel villain is their motivations and whether or not you can actually side with them. And there are times where it feels like you know that it's morally wrong what he's doing, but you understand where he's coming from and you can somewhat agree with it. That's what makes a great Marvel villain to me. And that's what this movie really did. It's more than just big punchy action kicking scenes with people throwing spears at each other. Other than delving into those themes and honoring Chadwick Boseman's legacy, there was a focus here on story, on character work, and it felt like it was a movie Ryan Coogler made. It didn't feel like an assembly line of people coming in and being like, well, we have to set up the Marvel Cinematic Universe for what's to come, and you have to do this, and you have to do that. It didn't feel like it was Marvel Studios stepping in. It felt like they let Ryan Coogler have his own creative control, and that's what I really loved about Wakanda Forever. And because of what this movie is actually addressing and everything it tries to do, it actually gave that subtitle a lot more meaning than you would think it would have. One thing that is for sure an improvement over the original Black Panther film is the visual effects work. The VFX here are really, really good. Even if it is noticeable, I think we're just at that point now where CGI is just going to be noticeable in films. Like, I mean, even Avatar, The Way of Water is coming out, and even, like, you can tell that they're motion captured, computer generated blue people on a friggin' planet, for Christ's sakes. As an army of blue people, that would definitely piss James Cameron off, and he would definitely file a lawsuit against Marvel saying that they ripped off his property Avatar, but, you know, he also ripped off Pocahontas with that movie, so he has no right to say that. So, I mean, yeah, obviously, like, they're going to make it look as real as possible. And, I mean, compared to the first one, where the visual effects, especially in that end fight between Black Panther and Killmonger, and the first one in the Vibranium Mine, like, that felt unfinished. It felt like they needed at least, like, a month or two more of visual effects work to patch that up, and they didn't. And it felt like that they released an unfinished product. The visual effects work here is a lot better. There's maybe like a glitch here or there where movement looks a little off, but if there's a movement that feels off, it's very quick and hard for the naked eye to see. But I was very happy that the visual effects work was a lot better here. The CGI was a lot better. It actually blended into the movie a lot more, and there's a lot of stylistic choices Ryan Coogler actually does with the action sequences in this movie. He does slow-mo. And you guys know me, I don't like slow-mo. See, I think slow-mo can work in a movie when you do it to the degree that Ryan Coogler did it in this movie. I'm not a fan of it. When it happened, I was like, oh no, don't do this a lot. But he doesn't do it a lot. I counted maybe like 4 or 5 times that he did it in total, and it wasn't a shot that lingered on it being so stylistic. It was just quick little things that actually enhance the action sequences for me. The action set pieces are really, really good too. The one that I was really looking forward to was actually in the trailer. It's that cargo ship one. That one was a bit of a letdown, but there's two more in the movie that I thought were really good. I had a lot of fun watching those scenes, and it was a nice little reprieve from all the juggling of the themes that this movie had to do. It felt like action scenes in service of the story, not just action scenes for the sake of action scenes. It felt like that was the progression that the movie was moving towards with setting up action set pieces like that. And those action sequences actually brought out a lot of fun for a movie that is very full of emotions, and it just balanced those two well together. I think my only real knock against the movie is some supporting characters that return from the first movie or return from other projects in the MCU feel like they didn't have to be here, or it just feels like the MCU machine moving, or it just felt like they didn't have all that much to do. There's one character in particular that returns from the first movie, and I said, okay, I want to see where this goes, and it just felt like it didn't lead to anywhere significant. These characters feel like they're part of subplots that do tie into the main plot of the movie, and it just feels kind of needlessly pointless at times, which makes the movie feel a little bit bloated with its runtime. And I just felt that in these scenes, that's when the movie became a lot less ambitious and a lot less reflective. And I think it's because the MCU machine did show in those scenes, even if Ryan Coogler was trying to do his own thing. It did feel like, yeah, we're in a universe. It's not just the Wakanda universe. It's the universe at large here in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So that did bother me a little bit, that we did have some connections to the MCU, and those characters just didn't feel like they belonged in this movie and didn't have all that much to do, and their subplots took away from a lot of the emotion and the reflective state of the movie and the ambition that the movie was trying to present to us. But I think Ryan Coogler and his team did the best they could. They pulled off a movie that not 100% sure how it's going to be received, because Phase 4 has been a really mixed bag for a lot of fans. The two that I've seen people like the most are Shang-Chi and No Way Home. I mean, when it comes to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, everybody was let down that there was maybe too much multiverse and not enough madness, or maybe the other way around. Eternals has been split right down the middle. Thor: Love and Thunder has the lowest IMDb score out of all the Thors, even though it's better than Dark World. I don't know what you people are smoking. And I don't think anybody cares about Black Widow anymore. I don't hear anybody talk about it. So I'm curious to see what the actual audience reception to this movie is going to be. Because where there isn't a lot of action set pieces, and it's more subtle in that approach, and it's very dialogue heavy, it's a long run time, it's very reflective, and it has a lot of themes that it presents. I'm curious to know if people are gonna actually really like this movie, and if it's gonna be what they expect from a Marvel movie, because it's not your typical Marvel movie. And I think, other than honoring the legacy of Chadwick Boseman, I think that's the biggest praise I have for Wakanda Forever, is that even though the MCU machine is present in the movie, for most of the movie, it doesn't feel like it's this big Marvel movie. It feels like it's its own separate superhero movie. It doesn't feel like it's all action, no plot, like Black Adam. It actually has something to say, and curious to know what people are going to think about this. I really enjoyed Wakanda Forever. I'm going to say I really enjoyed it with a full bucket of popcorn. I do want to know what you guys thought of Wakanda Forever, so drop me some feedback in the comment section below. I will leave my link to my website in the description below as well. Hope to be back with a background soon, and with all my equipment soon, so just hang in there for a little bit more, guys. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex Madden, and I'll see you at the movies. So.